The Seventh-day Adventist argument against immigration. It's really simple. I am an American living overseas, and some employees of an Adventist hospital here recently asked me about the immigration situation in the United States, and I'll tell you the same thing that I told them. Number one, the United States of America was founded on Protestant principles. Quote, Republicanism and Protestantism became the fundamental principles of the United States. These principles are the secret of its what? Of its power and prosperity. The United States was not founded on Catholic principles, not Islamic, not Buddhist, not Hindu, and certainly not Jewish. No, it was founded specifically on principles that are unique to the Protestant Reformation. Number two, in our Adventist theology, the great danger that the world will face is when America abandons its Protestant principles. Quote, our country shall repudiate every principle of its Constitution as a what? As a Protestant and Republican government. Now, take a moment to appreciate that. We are in danger when the United States government abandons what are explicitly Protestant principles. So it follows that if we care not only about our own country, but also the world, then we want to defend and ensure those Protestant principles remain. This is also proof that there's no such thing as a secular government. Every government on the planet operates within an ideological, theological framework, and the framework for the USA has historically been Protestant. We Adventists believe that this one country has tremendous, disproportionate influence on the world, especially in the sense of religious liberty. And the danger is when this one country rejects and abandons its Protestant framework. Number three, this is really simple. When you change the demographic of a country by importing people who do not share Protestant values, then the values of the country will change. Let me provide an excellent example. The World Jewish Congress claims to be, and I quote, the official representative of the Jewish world, whose mission is to defend the state of Israel and quote, Jewish values. Well, on May 19th, 2023, the World Jewish Congress posted a video here where they very openly and publicly boasted that Jews have been more responsible than any other group for bringing about the legalization and normalizing of gay marriage and abortion, among many other evils. In a recent video, we looked at the fact that the pornography industry and its great evils are also the result of Jews, and that by their own admission is an effort to combat Christianity. Now, to anyone who has read the books and who is familiar with the history, this will come as no surprise. The destruction of marriage and the genocide of millions of American children and the great evils ruining our country has been a result of, to use their own words, the disproportionate influence of Jews. And this is no secret. They openly boast about it, and they want everyone to know. They literally title the video Jewish and Proud and say they are proud because, and I quote, Jews have always done what's right. This is not Photoshop. They openly boast and flaunt this before the world. To continue our lesson, if the United States wants to retain Protestant values and principles, it cannot afford to import people who reject those values because they're going to naturally vote for and advocate for contrary principles. For example, if you have an organization for vegetarians and you allow in meat eaters and you give the meat eaters opportunity to vote and have positions of influence, then it's only a matter of time until the vegetarian principles get tossed right out the window. This is really simple. It's not rocket science. If you change the demographic, you change the principles. Another great example from our own church are Seventh-day Adventist hospitals. It's a fact that many of our hospitals have many non-Adventist staff and doctors, and one real challenge is that the more that you increase the number of non-Adventists, the more difficult it is to maintain the unique mission and character of the hospital. This is simple. If you change the demographic, you change the country. And the important point is that it doesn't matter whether it's legal or illegal immigration. As long as you import people who don't share your values, then both have the same net effect. For example, recently and right now there's a debate about importing recipients of H-1B visas into the USA. These are mostly people from India, but this demographic statistically is very pro-abortion and does not share Protestant values. President Trump wants to bring them in legally, but the net effect is the same. They will influence a change in values. And this is especially true because many H-1B visas are very common in the tech industry, which has huge, disproportionate control over what Americans are allowed to talk about or not talk about. When immigrants from all over the world want to move to the USA, they are giving a public testimony and a public witness that our country is more desirable than their own. But it only became more desirable because of Protestant principles. But the tragic irony is that immigrants reject these principles, which in turn make the country less desirable, less safe, less productive, etc. They want all the fruit, but they reject the tree. This is, of course, unsustainable. If you reject the tree, it will no longer produce fruit. Notice very carefully that it's especially Western nations with any history of Christianity that are being carefully conditioned and groomed to believe that they must destroy their country by embracing mass immigration. Arguably, one of the most effective attacks against Christianity and the church today is by immigration because it undermines and decreases the ability of any Protestant population to defend their values. Immigration is a highly effective weapon against Protestantism. As we are seeing right before our eyes and has been happening for many decades, when Protestants lose control of the media and academia and the government, media, and academia then take a hostile posture and try to shut them down. The great evils in our society that Protestants complain about, pornography, gay marriage, abortion, feminism, all these evils and more are the result of allowing immigrants who don't support Protestant values. The American dream and experience came to an end when you started to allow people in who reject what you believe. It's simple. To repeat the example, your vegetarian society came to an end because you allowed in the meat eaters and now they rule over you. Notice very carefully that Americans are being conditioned to believe that we must send our money to pay for border security of other nations, but we can't have border security of our own nation. We are being very carefully conditioned with propaganda to believe that we are freedom-loving patriots if we send our children to fight and die to protect other countries far away while our own government and military do nothing to defend our own border. This is suicide. It's national suicide. The United States of America was founded on Protestant principles by the specific demographic of white Europeans. But those principles are being destroyed because we allowed in people who reject those principles, and now they rule over us, and now whites, especially white heterosexual Christians, are the #1 most discriminated group. There is no group in American society who are more discriminated against than white heterosexual Christians, especially men, and this is all by design because we are a conquered country. The United States of America is a conquered country that now serves the interests of foreign countries, and in order to prevent the growth and recovery of Protestant principles, it is absolutely necessary that the demographic who are more likely than any other demographic to hold such principles and want them instilled in government are discriminated against. Anybody watching this video who has been paying attention knows that what I am saying is nothing new. This has been going on for decades now and has been written about extensively by many people. To cite just one example, you can check this out. Harvard professor Dr. Samuel Huntington wrote, during the 19th century and until the late 20th century, immigrants were in various ways compelled, induced, and persuaded to adhere to the central elements of the Anglo-Protestant culture. 20th century cultural pluralists, multiculturalists, and spokesmen for ethnic and racial minorities testify to the success of these efforts. Quote, throughout American history, people who were not white Anglo-Saxon Protestants have become Americans by adopting America's Anglo-Protestant culture and political values. This benefited who? It benefited them and the country. However, Dr. Huntington documents that this was replaced with the idea of multiculturalism, also promoted today as diversity, which is, and I quote, multiculturalism is in its essence anti-European civilization. It is, as one scholar said, a movement opposed to the monocultural hegemony of Eurocentric values. It is opposed to the narrow Eurocentric concepts of American democratic principles, culture, and identity. It is basically an anti-Western ideology. Multiculturalism and diversity is designed to destroy Protestantism, and it's working fabulously. And if that wasn't bad enough, on top of all of this is the absolute insanity that we hear from our own Adventist leaders, who not only refuse to defend the nation's sovereign right to defend our borders, but who excuse and support the immigration that undermines the Protestant values. And then they turn around and walk into the pulpit and preach that the danger we face is when such values are eroded. This is, of course, completely insane, excusing the very thing that destroys these values while simultaneously crying about the destruction of values. The North American division of the Adventist Church just a few days ago published a statement affirming the, quote, rights of all persons, no matter what their country of origin, the equal rights provided in the U.S. Constitution, and fair treatment as immigrants and refugees in this country. Millions of people have entered the country illegally. They have broken the law. By definition, they are criminals, and our Adventist church leadership is defending them, claiming that it is inhumane and, notice this language right here, diametrically opposed to the Bible, to have laws that would threaten them with deportation. According to them, protecting a nation's border and arresting criminals is the work of Satan. It is opposed to, it is anti-Christ. This insanity is, of course, from the very same people who support abortion. And notice here, this is a great example to notice the hypocrisy. To adopt their language, if through the act of sex and conception the unborn child becomes an immigrant in the mother's womb, then according to our Adventist leadership, it's perfectly legal to kill that child. But if an immigrant child enters the country, then any law that would even threaten deporting them alive is anti-Christ. It's okay for Japanese Adventists to have borders, no problem. It's okay for Adventists in Brazil to have borders, okay for Adventists in Kenya to have borders, no problem. And of course, Israel, it's certainly okay for them to have borders, but for what was once a Protestant America, absolutely not. How wild and strange to realize that some of the most dangerous people undermining this great nation are my own church leaders. The irony is that I am an American, and because of hearing sermons about the need for foreign missions, I decided to leave my country 16 years ago in order to accept whatever mission opportunities were available overseas. Now, I am lectured to by my own church that I have to obey the laws of all the countries and regions where I have moved to and where I live. But other people can literally break the law of my own home country, and my church is defending that. That is insane. It's insane. And it is an understatement to say that my Adventist church must be punished for this. This is also absurd on the part of leadership because the United States government under Trump, under the Trump administration, is no different and may in fact, until proven otherwise, be worse than Biden. Again, emphasize, until proven otherwise. Trump promised, and I quote, "On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history to get the criminals out." That, however, is false because, quote, in his first month in office, the U.S. deported 37,600 people, less than, read that, less than the monthly average of 57,000 removals and returns in the last full year of Joe Biden's administration. Or here, quote, Despite Trump's pledge, so far there has been no jump in expulsions into Mexico, official figures show. So despite all of the rhetoric from Republicans and quote conservatives, there is no mass deportation taking place because both Republicans and Democrats, both Trump and Biden, support immigration, whether it's illegal or legal. However, please pay attention and notice that Trump issued an executive order that specifically targets for deportation anyone who has, quote, participated in protests against Costa Rica. This little tiny nation of Costa Rica is somehow so powerful and important that if you protest them in the USA with our supposed freedoms, then you will be deported. It's just absolutely amazing that Costa Rica's sovereignty and Costa Rica borders are more important than our own country. Americans in their own country are put last behind the interests of Costa Rica. It's Costa Rica first. Make Costa Rica great again. Pura vida. The situation is that if you illegally enter the country with no support for, even hostility towards Protestant values, then you can stay. But if you dare criticize Costa Rica, then, you have to be deported. But you reply, Andrew, you're wrong. It's not Costa Rica. Okay, thanks for the clarification. By the way, if I were a pastor in the USA and if illegals were trying to hide in my church, as a pastor, I would pray with the person and then immediately walk you straight out the door to the deportation vehicle. You are committing a crime, and you need to be a Christian and do what's right and go back to your country and be a witness for Jesus there and not a criminal here. I am both an American and I am an Adventist. And becoming an Adventist does not negate my being American. Both are true at the same time, and as an Adventist Christian, I am commanded by God to love my neighbor and seek the peace and prosperity and well-being of my fellow Americans. The greatest evidence that I did not love God would be to reject any concern for and love for my fellow Americans. And I'm not going to be bullied or shamed by the disgusting and false rhetoric that I should hate my country and hate my neighbor. Notice that church leaders in other countries around the world, they don't dare issue any statement encouraging this behavior because they know that there would be consequences. By the way, if you ever run into any of these fanatics who say that if we love Jesus, we must have open borders and allow in immigrants, ask them this question. Why is it that the Adventist Church does not allow membership to people who do not accept our beliefs? Why? Why is it that you cannot have any leadership position in our church unless you demonstrate that you support and are committed to our fundamental beliefs? Now, ask that question, and whatever comes out of their mouth is an argument against immigration. Everybody watching this video knows full well that the very moment you allow people to join, and especially the moment that you allow people who reject our beliefs to have positions of influence and leadership, that this will destroy our church and our organization will implode. You can't maintain the same values if you change the demographic. If I were in charge of policy, I would mandate that all illegals be shipped to Silver Spring, Maryland. We should take all of the migrants, especially from Somalia, El Salvador, and Afghanistan, and ship them straight to the neighborhoods of Adventist leaders. If they are so concerned about not being anti-Christ, then fine. You take them and you pay for them. As an American, the government is fully within its God-given authority and duty to protect its people and deport illegals. At the same time, as an Adventist, my primary concern is the finishing of the Great Commission, which means that we need to start deporting church members. Anyways, there's a lot more that could be said on these topics, but that's enough for today. As always, thank you for watching.